The average time between being hacked and realizing you've been hacked is 1 year. Can you afford to let an intruder roam your network for that long? Can your company weather the fallout when this comes to light? Black Hills Information Security can find the bad guys in your network and train you to do it yourself. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a hunt teaming engagement can help you find a persistent threat in your network. Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries in enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge on the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries in the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame, automate the hunt.
And welcome back to the show! Mr. Paul had to leave us for the rest of the evening, but we've added a new cast of characters. We're welcoming Jason and Jack back, but we also have Mr. Not Kevin.
Hey!
In studio.
In here.
Oh my word. All up in the hizzy. All up in the hizzy.
Wow.
Or something. And
although I feel a little lost. I don't have a window. So
with bars on it. Yeah. With bars on it. I mean,
yeah, I got a door though. That kind of works. It's an infinite door.
It's an infinite door. Ooh.
Oh.
Nice. And joining us for a tech segment coming up here real quick is Mr. Apollo Clark. Excellent. But first, check out our on-demand material. Some of our previously recorded webcasts are now available on demand at securityweekly.com/on-demand. And DerbyCon is holding its first ever mental health and wellness workshop. To help support their efforts, please go to derbycon.com/wellness. This should be, I'd say lots of fun, but I think it's a really good idea on the DerbyCon wellness stuff. But with that, let's get to our lovely tech segment with Mr. Apollo Clark, who is going to tell us about threat hunting in the cloud.
Reaching deep inside your WAF.
Wow.
And seeing what's up there.
Wow. Can you in fact reach so deep that we can use your mouth as a sock puppet? You didn't think I heard that, Jeff, did you?
Moving on.
Yes,
I gave this
Apollo, take it away.
I gave this presentation a couple weeks ago at the Boston Security Meetup, so I'm going to rehash it for you guys. So, first things first, every good presentation begins with the sagacious words of InfoSec Taylor Swift. Cyber war does not determine who is right, only who is left. You keep that with you. That'll save your ass one day.
Wow. Was it my left ass or my right ass?
If you're gonna aff something, you gotta do the whole ass.
Right, because you can't half-ass it.
Can't half-ass it. Got the whole ass. So really quick, we're gonna go over the problem, how to approach the problem, the actual solutions to do it, and then I'm gonna show you how to actually build this. Because it's most people will say, here's a problem, here's the approach, here's what you could do. I've actually built it. It's all open source. It's all free.
Yay!
And questions, you can just interrupt me. So.
Don't worry.
First off, the problem.
Well, there's your problem right there.
In other words, what would you say your problem is? What would you say we're going to do here? We're going to decide how to detect and prevent security incidents in the cloud. This is what I built. Don't go over all the details. Again, these are all in the show notes. Don't worry if you miss a few details here. This is a multi-tier web app. This includes a HTTP cache, a web service layer, session management, a SQL database, a file store, email services, as well as a builder for all of this using Jenkins, a SSH bastion. Oh my God, we can make our own bastions. It's crazy. Instead of SSHing from the public. As well as an ELK stack for monitoring logs and metrics.
So very similar to what you would see in a typical cloud environment of someone that has done some decent implementation.
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing crazy with this. This is pretty much what I've been using for the past at least 10 years, so pretty standard stuff.
Awesome.
Using a lot of the components that are standard for AWS. So.
Nice. I know some folks that could learn something from that diagram.
So here's the general approach. This is security maturity in the cloud. If you've ever done HIPAA, FedRAMP, PCI, all that good stuff, there's nothing new here. You know, inventory management, access management, config management, patch management, logging, monitoring, alerts, and finally automated remediation. Now, the thing about this list, and I was talking to Not Kevin about this earlier, you can't do this list in reverse. Now, don't get me wrong. I've worked on projects where we went ahead and jumped to number 5, logging and monitoring, without doing patching. But hey, Larry, guess what's going to happen if you do logging and monitoring correctly and you're not patching?
You're going to have a really bad time.
You're going to have a shit ton of alerts if you're doing it correctly. So the point of this is the 1 to 7 step. But more importantly with this presentation is I'm going to show you guys how to use AWS CLI, which is free. That really cool kind of triangle icon there is Facebook's OS query. And what's cool about that is it lets you get system stats. So Facebook developed this internally. They want stats like what's the network connections, what do you have installed, what are the system users, like really basic stuff. Works on Facebook, or Mac, Windows, and Linux.
And
So,
Facebook.
Yeah, they use it on Facebook, everywhere, actually. It's a great system. And then finally, we have the ELK stack, so Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana. And how can we use all these tools to basically build our own threat hunting platform for free? The approach I went with this is keep it simple. But what does that really mean? Number one, to me, keeping something simple with code is a junior engineer can manage it. If I throw in some regex and some crazy-ass bash, awk, sed, and grep, a junior engineer is not going to be able to manage that. So, I wouldn't say, use stupid little if and for loops and single variables, but do something that's well-maintained and well-documented, that I can hand off to a junior engineer that's had a couple months of training and say, look, you go change it, you go fix it. Try and reuse existing systems. You notice I used a ton of open source. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel for this stuff. I could, but why? You just use what's already out there. Write as little code and configuration as possible. I could write 1,000 lines of bash, but I could do 100 lines of Python. So I'm going to do that. Make everything truly fully automated. This entire system can be deployed with a single curl command. I did that just to see if I even could, and it worked. Try and keep the false positives low. Again, we all know you're never going to get 0, but you can keep them low. And finally, try and keep the cost as low as possible. So at this point, you're thinking to yourself, not bad. Not bad.
Good job, Michael Bolton.
See where this goes. Huge Michael Bolton fan. Though I'm more of a fan of Tom Jones. I have a friend named Tom Jones.
Nice.
So the solution, how do we actually solve these problems? This command right here does inventory management. I had a friend who was the director of operations and had access to 54 AWS accounts. And I asked him every morning, please, kind sir, could you please run this one command? And it goes through and says, get every single instance in AWS that's running, because I don't care if it's shut off, and get me the public DNS. Frankly, if it's an internal-facing service, I'm not too concerned about it, as much as I am public-facing. And then I do a diff. What's new today?
So for folks who don't have much, say, cloud infrastructure management, what is the challenge you're solving with this? Why would you want to run this every day?
This will show you all of the new instances and what you're running everywhere.
The challenge being maybe you built an instance and forgot about it and then walked away? Or
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or more importantly, what did the devs do at 2 o'clock in the morning last night while they were on a sleep deprived bender? And what application did they decide to stand up?
Yeah. Why do we have 1,000 new instances today? What's up with that? And this is just stupid simple.
Or why do we have one?
Oh, yeah.
Because it only takes one.
Why do we go down? Oh, yeah.
Why do we have one fewer instance?
Yeah, why do we have a few thousand fewer instances?
That's also bad.
I've been in both of those scenarios. They both suck. All right, next up.
But they all suck in different ways.
Yes. Gonna leave that joke hanging in the air.
Good.
Anyways, listing all users. AIM users. This is how you access AWS using the CLI. And this basically says, okay, you can do things. Give me a list of that. The last command, if you ever see SQL in this presentation, it's all OS query. So OS query can do the exact same thing. It can say, hey, who are the system users? And if I suddenly see Olaf logging in from Hungary, I kind of wonder, why is Olaf there?
Oh, he lives there.
Why are there 15 Igors? Good things to know. Config management. This is a pretty broad, wide one, but in general, these are the things I try to maintain configuration of. WAF rules, obviously. AIM user rules and groups. Security group rules, S3 bucket rules. Saying it's in AWS and most cloud providers, it's so easy to swap up a single instance and attach a single policy to it. But you should really be using policy groups and policy group cluster rules and saying, we made a generic rule, you can do whatever you want as long as you use this rule. Keeps things stupid easy to manage.
So out of your experience, where do you see the biggest challenges of these? Which is the ones that people get wrong most?
Again, the number one rule is, drum roll please, S3 buckets, publicly fucking facing.
Yes.
But Larry, I forgot it's a secret IP address.
Of course it is.
No one knows.
Of course it is.
Of course it is.
No one on Shodan found it.
Yep. And I'm surprised, Kevin didn't say wasn't disappointed that WAF rules weren't the ones that
I giggled in there. No,
you did.
it's important to have a good giggle.
It's important to have a good WAF too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Larry, remind me again, like how often does Shodan scan literally the entire internet? It does it like what, every 3 days? Once a week or something like that?
It's often.
It's pretty common. And one developer, and props on this one, this is a healthy thing in a tech environment. He challenged me and said, I popped up an instance yesterday, find it. And I did. And more importantly, I found it on Shodan.
Oh.
just to prove my point.
Yep.
Yeah, I found it. look. And
But
guess
somebody
what?
else found it before I did.
Exactly.
And Joden's not the only scanning service scanning the
God,
internet.
no.
That's
God, no.
it's easily one of my favorite, but it is not the only one. It is not the only public one or private one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
having public buckets can be a pretty bad day.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the tool, but there's a tool now that will illuminate all of the DNS bucket names.
Mhm.
Nice.
I mean, because the bucket names are only like 63 characters, alphanumeric. I can't remember if it's upper and lowercase. I think it's all lowercase. It might be upper and lower, but the point of that is like
it's a fixed space.
it's a fixed
Mhm.
space. Like you can scan that pretty quickly. It's not gonna. Yeah.
Yep.
Moving on. So that's the cloud resources themselves. Also, you want to do service instances or server instances and what's on them. So SSH users and their rules. Not everyone belongs to the root group. Let's not do that. Oh my God, I've seen MySQL running as root, and I'm like, why? Well, I just wanted to make it work. MySQL, it has its own user group. Use the user group, please. Anyways, running processes. This is a really, really fun one. You'll find some weird stuff. And Kevin and I were talking in the train about user behavioral analytics. Like we've seen some weird stuff in the environment. You'll have times where, you might have seen this, where you installed a new version of a service, but you never stopped the previous version of the service.
Oh.
So what's on disk doesn't match what's in memory. Oh yeah, that's a fun one. Yeah, Nessus was pretty good about finding that too.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, what's running? There was one time where I found a cluster of over 500 Docker instances, and the ops team's like, "We don't run Docker," and I'm like, "I found 500 instances."
You do now.
What are you talking about? And the ops team, so I gave them a list of like a couple hundred as a sample. They logged on. They're like, "Wow, we're running Docker." And then this old man in a large gray beard, he legit had a gray beard, and he
Jack?
said, "It wasn't as sagacious as Jack's is. We can only hope to aspire
Jack
to a level of that wisdom. Maybe one day." Yeah. But yeah, so it turns out what it was a greenfield project that got abandoned. It was made 5 years ago, abandoned 3 years ago, and no one ever shut it down.
Wow.
Yeah. But the point is, like, this is like basic stuff, and you find weird things.
And the fact that they were using Docker that long ago.
Yeah, it was like one of the early beta builds too.
So
Yeah.
was, and arguably probably poorly implemented.
Oh yeah. I did. we literally I like doing it too. We call it the kill shot.
Yep.
You know, who's going to give us the kill shot call? And one of the directors is like, "No one's using it. Not selling to any customers. Kill it. Boom.
Click.
Down. Oh yeah. Tango down. There we go. We can use that phrase. We need to take that phrase back. Anyways, network services. You know, what's talking? Because frankly, if it's a process running but it's not trying to network, honestly, I kind of don't care. Yeah, you can pivot through it, but in practice, you don't see it too often. If it's a network service, I want to know. Finally, the service configurations. Let's not have everything talking to the entire internet. I know. Let's just have MySQL talk to itself or a single IP address. Crazy. Don't put MongoDB on the public internet.
What?
Oh, I forgot. The customers need to log in, and the developers need to log in from anywhere. Sorry. I'm having flashbacks. I've seen some things. So here we go. This is a simple AIM command listing the group policies for, this is CloudWatch. But I highlighted in red, you can see, it gives you back a big JSON blob. You can see specific things like CloudWatch full access. You'll also find other rules along the terms of list all instances or start and stop instances. So again, this is specific to your environment. Maybe this instance or this service shouldn't have the ability to start and stop servers. Crazy idea. What I like doing is actually locking the developers from shutting off servers. Because it makes perfect sense to give them access to start things. But honestly, I kind of prefer to not let them turn things off. I prefer leaving that to the ops team. So they have to work with them. Crazy. Yeah. So you can do some pretty cool things. You can just do a grep for this. Again, I'm talking about just run this one command, save it to a text file, and run grep. Like, we're not even talking about ELK yet. Here's how we get all the running processes using OS query. Here's how we get the listening ports. Again, stupid simple SQL commands versus some of the crazy bash stuff you could do. This one's a little crazy batch. This is a patch management. So I use a lot of Ubuntu, so you can do apt list installed, and you can do a little cut on it and grab the first and second fields. Save that. That'll give you a list of all the installed packages and their versions. Quick and easy. What you can do to be a little more fancy is because when you do this on a server, you're going to get everything, including all the default stuff, like curl and wget, which I don't care about. So what I do is I say, okay, give me the server that's running. I'm going to start up a new instance of that server, and I'm going to make a list of all the default packages. And then I'm going to do a diff. And what happens with that diff is you see whatever the developers, the ops team installed on top of the defaults. And then you start looking at that, you start seeing patterns saying, oh, we're running PHP 4 or 5 or 5.2, whatever, over here, and we're running PHP 7 here. Okay, cool. Oh, here's the MySQL cluster because we can say this is all running MySQL Server. So that's really simple, easy. This is all command line stuff. But if you use OS query, it becomes a simple SQL command that says select name version revision. That's it, which is really, really fun. So logging and monitoring. I've deployed this 3 times for 3 different companies. So first, you use the Elastic Beats. This includes Heartbeat for just saying is a service up, kind of like Pingdom, like just do ping or telnet or whatever just to connect. You can do Metric Beat, which does metrics, so like how many connections does Apache have, how many queries are being run on MySQL. You can do File Beat, which is the new replacement for Logstash. So that just says, it's basically like RSys log. Grab my syslogs and send them over. There's also Packet Beat, which I got to play more with, but it's in a similar line to Bro and Suricata. Basically says, monitor my network traffic, connections, see what's going on with those, connects, disconnects, all that stuff. So that's how you get the data from the endpoints. You have to install all those agents on all your endpoints, which sucks, but
If you had some automation, that would be awesome.
yeah, if you use Chef, Puppet, Ansible to get that out there. So in production, you actually could go straight from the beats into the Elasticsearch database and then use Kibana to look at it. Don't do that, because that doesn't scale. So you want to use Logstash. Logstash allows transformations, because you usually don't want to get the raw metrics and raw data and just dump it in. There's fields you don't want. There's things you might want to add. You might want to say, oh, if you're from this AWS account, it belongs to this team and department. You want to add an extra tag, for example, that kind of thing. So again, transformations. But even better is adding Kafka as a buffering layer, because let's say that you want to upgrade Logstash or Elasticsearch or Kibana, which happens, every couple weeks, about once a month. Then the servers, that whole pipeline is going to go down for a few minutes during the restarts. Kafka will sit there and buffer into memory and disk. So it's good to have that buffering layer. So this is the full pipeline. Beats. So again, extract, buffer, transform, load, and then visualize.
Yep.
Again, glorified ETL with a few extra layers.
Nice. So you go from beats to the edge.
Yep, exactly. And Kibana can be used for... I see you laugh. Yes. Anyways.
Did you catch that, Johnny?
Anyways, so that's really cool. But the thing is, Elasticsearch doesn't have everything you need. Kibana doesn't have everything you need. And they sold that for a long time as their premium service X-Pack. Luckily, companies like Yelp, Yelp, Yahoo, Etsy, and I'm going to say Yahoo, developed a few extra plugins. So this one's called ElastAlert. This is one's used by Yelp. So ElastAlert says, look for specific keywords or look for a number of events happening in a certain time frame, and then do an alert. So what I did was I tied that up to AWS's SNS service. So what's cool with that is you can get an email, a text message, a phone call, you can do a Slack, you can do a HipChat, Jira ticket, whatever you want. So that's really nice to get alerts out.
Nice.
This is something that I wrote about a year ago. This is when, I think it was right after the Verizon S3 bucket scandal stuff. And this is a one-liner. Don't try to read it. You can look at it later. It basically says, AWS, give me a list of all my S3 buckets. Go through, check the policy audit and says, is it globally open to all users? If it is, make it private. And this is on my GitHub account. I have the link in the description. And you run this one-liner every morning, it'll shut down all your buckets automatically every day.
But what if someone's using that bucket?
Then they should have a fucking IAM policy for it. No, I'm not going to say which client, a large client, and they were like, oh, we want to use S3 buckets. I'm like, all right, cool. Great, but wait. What do you mean we need an AWS account to pull the files? I'm like,
oh God.
Well, I need to lock it down to your VPN IP. Wait, what? But what if we're not on the VPN? Then you shouldn't be accessing it.
But wait, I just can't put this on the internet?
Yeah, crazy. Crazy. So this is where we're going to really beat the thing down. So we get a sense we've established the problem, we've got some solutions. Let's actually build the thing. Let's really fuck this thing up. Let's do it.
Get to the chopper.
So this is where the dev part comes into this. So number one, we got to build the VMs. Got to build our gold images. So there's a service called Packer. Again, these are all free tools. And Packer's big JSON blob lets you build VMs for local on VirtualBox, Hyper-V, VMware, but also AWS, Azure, and Google. So you can build your VMs. So usually what I'll do is I'll get a baseline VM because the AWS Ubuntu instances have a lot of pre-built packages. They have like custom kernel modules to optimize themselves for AWS. So I use that as the base image, and then I use the next service, which is Ansible, to install and configure things. So like install and configure Elasticsearch, install and configure Apache, etc. So that's how you do that. So build your AMIs, use Ansible or Chef or Puppet to install and configure things. The next service that is really useful is server spec, because you may install a service, but it may not actually be configured and running. So
Hate that.
yeah, when you lock things down too much, it doesn't work. So server spec is made to do that. It's all pass-fail. So I throw in a bunch of scripts that say, hit port 80, check if the service is running, etc. Basic stuff. So that's really good for building individual instances. This other service, though, Terraform, allows you to deploy cloud resources. Now, to everyone in the audience, if you ever work on a project and they say, we're going to use AWS Cloud Manager, or we're going to use Azure Cloud Resource Manager, just don't do it. Don't do it. So if you look at the AWS CloudFormation, it limits you to, I kid you not, only 200 resources. Now you think about that. This includes individual firewall rules, by the way. Imagine building any kind of medium-sized project. You can only build 200 resources. You are screwed. And the problem is that's a hard limit. A lot of things in AWS are soft limits. You call up your service rep and you say, hey, can I deploy 1,000 more EC2 instances? And they're like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll increase your limit. Okay, bye. You cannot increase limits with this, which blows my mind. And there's no plans to increase it.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like if you go on the AWS forums and look it up, there's like 1,000 complaints. Like, please fix, please change, please increase, please increase. I have no idea why they don't, but whatever. The other thing on Azure, Cloud Resource Manager does the exact same thing. I think their limit's like 250 or 256 or something like that. It's really, really low. So yeah, it's nice to go full cloud native, but in practice, you need to know these service limits because you're going to code yourself into a corner. Now, what's cool about Terraform, though, it's written in Golang, and it's basically a wrapper around the CLI. So anything you can do on the AWS CLI, you can do with Terraform. And Terraform is just JSON. It's big key value pairs. The name of the instance, how much RAM, how much CPUs, basic stuff. Really simple, easy to make. So what I did was that first picture I showed you of a network diagram, which, by the way, if you're going to build a project, build a freaking network diagram. That's the first thing I do with every project I'm on. Hey, senior engineer, director of operations, please show me your network diagram. Do we have one? Oh, we do. Oh, it's from 3 years ago. Don't be that guy.
Oh, we were working with a customer fairly recently. We asked him, hey, can we get a data flow from your web app? And they're like, a what now?
Oh, even better, even better. Oh, that server talks to everything. Why? What is wrong with you?
You define exactly everything.
Oh, yeah, I've got
the internet. What?
Yeah. So the point is, if you're going to do a good project, I mean, this is a moderately sized project. The first thing I did day one was build a network diagram. And honestly, it made things easier for me to organize.
And interestingly enough, the first thing in your slide deck was a network diagram.
I know, crazy.
Shocking.
Now, guess how much this project goes for? $1 million? $10,000? $1,000? No, it's free.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've been building this for the past year and a half. I would say the best open source code comes from rage, anger, or arrogance. In this case, it was me just trying to prove to everyone in the world that this can be done. It can be done with open source, and it can be done for free.
Nice. So all of the services that you were talking about between all of the AWS stuff and all of the software packages in between Ansible and free?
So the deployment tools are free.
Okay.
But obviously, if you're deploying services on AWS, you got to pay for that.
Right.
So.
Right.
But yeah, so this is an open source project. You can go and pull it. And because you all trust me, you just run this one command and make sure you pipe it to sudo bash, and it can be all yours.
Yes. And your Mac will start playing.
I should put that in there.
You should.
The problem is, though, I have to detect the OS to make sure it's a little different on Ubuntu and Debian. I'll work on it.
Sounds like you're halfway there.
Halfway there. But yeah, so that's my project. And it's all running ELK. It's running Elasticsearch, Kibana, Kafka, like that whole network diagram. It's not running everything. I don't have the Jenkins part done, but everything else is there. And it's all free. So this was born out of the frustration and rage of how do we solve HIPAA? How do we solve FedRAMP? How do we solve PCI, et cetera? And it's really hard to do that in AWS because, and you can look this up, there's no real guidelines from AWS how to solve this problem. It's problems that in security we know, like, shit, we got to do PCI compliance. Fuck. Oh, we got to do end-to-end encryption. Fuck. And there's smatterings here and there in AWS that do it. But I basically just said, okay, I'm going to take all of this and put it in one place and make a project out of it. So if you like it, enjoy.
That's pretty. That's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of those things we see folks struggle with a lot, and being able to have that all in one place is pretty darn sexy.
Yeah, I mean, for some of my consulting gigs the past 3 years, this is basically what I've sold them on. Because I built an early version of this, didn't have everything I've shown, but had most of it. And it was a good example to show the tech people that were unfamiliar with AWS, unfamiliar with ELK, and say, well, how could we do that? I'm like, here you go. I just spin up an instance, and I just say, play with it. They're like, oh. So it helped me a lot with my consulting, but
Nice.
and I'm just like, there's nothing proprietary here. Because, oh my God, we're running a multi-tier web app. Oh my God, we're running ELK. Like, that's just...
Yeah, that's the
Bread and butter.
that's the underlying problem.
Yeah, it's bread and butter. There's nothing unique here. Yeah, nothing
That's
special.
Yeah, I think, and it still shocks me that there are organizations that do really great things by moving stuff to the cloud.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Clearly, stuff happens, and there's
Yeah.
lots of feature sets with lots of tools, and so many people miss the boat. Oh,
Yeah.
if we push it to the cloud, that's a computer, and it's not in my data center anymore, so we'll just configure it, and it'll be done. And
that's the thing, too, that people give way too much credit to AWS. And AWS, I've talked to some of the engineers a couple of years back at DEF CON, and I was asking them about specific security layers. They're like, we don't care. That's not us.
right,
We'll give you the infrastructure, but anything beyond that, that's on you.
yep,
Which is fair.
And
That's totally
so
fair.
many, it's Amazon. It's secure.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's your computer in someone else's data center.
Yup.
And I think lots of folks still feel that while they're taking the physical resources out of their data center and their actual physical servers and pushing them to the cloud, that they're going to have cost savings. But what they fail to realize that there's a whole bunch of other things that they need to do because it's not in their physical data center and they don't have the physical hardware that they need to do to secure it, which
Exactly.
maybe isn't a cost savings.
Yeah, so like the RDS, where you can run on MySQL as a service in
Yep.
AWS, I both love and hate it because you're basically given a simplified dashboard, and you're basically given this crazy JSON blob for all the values that you'd configure. So I'm just like, but you give up a lot of control, but you get that as a service, which is kind of nice. So a lot of these cloud services, there's no magic behind it. A lot of these things like I can't name it now, Athena or something like that. It's basically they took Kafka and just branded it as a service. So brave new world.
Yes.
But I would argue some of the things I showed, like inventory management in the cloud service providers, so much easier. Well, oh wait, I forgot. You segmented your network, Larry, right?
Yeah.
It's not flat. I can't just do a port scan.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. Right.
Alright.
Yeah. 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 You can come back and do that in about a month, right? Yeah. I'll have that done. So awesome. Yeah, Apollo. That's it.
Yep. I'm good.
Jason, Jack, Kevin. Any questions?
I just want to learn more about the WAF. That's what I'm waiting for that. Wait from that part.
I see Jack's got his microphone out.
I was just going to say, I got nothing.
Got nothing.
I
Yeah,
dig it.
nothing.
It's nice to see it all automated like this.
Yeah. Again, literally, you can get this down to one command. The whole one command thing, I had it down to like 5 commands one day, and I'm like, I bet I could wrap that into a bash script.
Yeah, and then I can put it in my cron tab. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And I can send that to Amazon SNS, and I can get an email every morning.
You just solved the world, I think. That's
I don't know. Well, Apollo did all the work.
But yeah, so I mean, honestly though, what did you guys think of the maturity model? That whole 1 through 7 steps. I mean, that's what we. I mean, I've seen vendors pitch that exact same thing.
Agreed.
So, but I think it's fun just to prove that you can do this for free with open source.
Mm.
You don't.
I agree.
You don't need to
That's
buy
awesome.
this crazy, extra service and tool, and we pull the VPC flow logs, and it's like, if you can do it yourself.
So can people contribute to this?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Open source on GitHub. Please do.
Awesome.
So github.com/Apollo Clark.
/TF-AWS.
But if you go to Apollo Clark, you'll see all of your other fun GitHub stuff.
Oh yeah, dude. I have like 75 repos. I probably have I have an addiction at this point to GitHub.
Yikes. I was actually excited, just toot my own horn. I had GitHub account for years, never did anything with it. Put a little project up there, and then we started moving some SAN stuff to GitHub, and my GitHub score went up.
Oh, yeah.
Look at all those contributions.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh man, I contributed source code. I contributed something to a GitHub repository 30 times today. Sweet.
Yeah, if you guys want to, we can talk about it a little later, is Linus Torvald updated the code of conduct rules for the Linux kernel a few days ago. And I can tell you both the good and the bad things I've seen with open source development.
I think that makes great sense for
In the
stories
shadows.
for the week.
Yeah.
Stories for the week. Speaking of which, let's take a break, and we'll come back. Stories of the week.